Hello, everybody. This is Mike from the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. My wife Beth and I would like to invite you to join us each week as we examine life at the intersection of marriage, family, careers, and ministry. Through 28 years of ministry, 26 years of marriage, 23 years of professional careers, and 21 years of being parents to 3 kids, our fun and honest discussions promise to have something for everyone. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hey, Are You Still There podcast with Mike and the award-winning Beth.
That's right.
Beth, you had a red carpet affair this past Wednesday.
Yes.
And walk us through it. You won a pretty big award. So let's talk about this. I feel like I'm in special company right now.
I think you're way overstating what this was, and I didn't win an award. It's like my entire department where I work won an award.
You and your legal team.
Yes, our legal team won. Yes. So the Charlotte Business Journal does awards for in-house counsel, and they honored like a Lifetime Achievement Award for a man in Charlotte, like service awards for different individuals. And then they have company, like corporate legal department awards. And so they had one for like the best in-house legal team for a small company, and then the best in-house legal team award for a large company. And so we have been nominated for the large company in-house legal team, and we won, and we're all
well, it's like winning
yes.
Best Picture at the Oscars.
Well, that's definitely true.
Not one person gets up there.
Yes.
All the director, the producer.
Yes, we did all go up on the stage.
Did you?
Yes, so we had we were at lucky table number 13. We had an assigned table together, and that we sat at, and then they did the little award announcement, and the entire table went up to one person received the award and spoke, thanked everybody. But we had the whole group picture and everything taken. Did they play
music when you went too long?
They didn't. No. They did have music when you were walking up or whatever, but no one spoke too long. Everyone was very good about keeping the remarks brief, I would say. Yes.
And that's because you didn't talk.
Exactly. And they probably knew better than to ask me to talk, because it would have been long-winded.
Would you have said, I want to thank my husband first and foremost?
Oh, for sure. Because this award would not, this best legal team department, I mean, everybody needs to thank my husband.
If I wasn't at home keeping things together, you wouldn't be able to have a career, Beth.
That's true. That is very true.
So everything that you do professionally has been built on my back.
That's right.
I carry the load of the family.
No, you don't. Not the whole load. I do a ton with the family.
So you can go chase your dream of winning awards.
Gosh. This is okay.
You're welcome.
Yes. Oh, thank you. You do. You're very supportive and very helpful, but I would say the reverse. I do a lot to help you chase your dreams too. But so now we are.
Well, we learned the other week I don't have dreams. I don't have bucket lists or anything.
Right.
I just wake up and just go about
and just do life.
Just do life.
Just live.
Raw dog in life.
Just out there living. Stop using that term now that Shirley said something. You've got to stop. Yeah.
So, talking about work and talking about your legal team, let's talk about work peers.
Okay.
People you work with.
Mm-hmm.
How has that been? You've been in the legal profession for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You've been at this one job for almost 20 years or 20 years exactly. I don't know, somewhere around there. I've worked at churches my whole life. Right. I mean, the biggest staff I ever worked on was maybe 5 people. So, but what's it like with work peers? It's got to be some kind of dynamic where you like some, you don't like some leave that you wish would have stayed, some stay that you wish would leave.
Yes.
You've had 25 years of working with different people in these, corporate settings. We'll use the term corporate, but professional settings. What's the deal with your friends?
It's
Because
interesting.
this kind of falls off of what we talked about the other week with friends, which we'll kind of get to in a minute. But we talked about friends the other week, and we really didn't get into work friends. But talk a little bit about what's it like to have work peers?
Well, I think work friends are interesting, and I've learned a lot the hard way over the years, but like I'm a very relational person. So even if I went into a job and I was like, I'm just going to be protective of myself and not trust people and not have friends, I just think that's an impossible way for me to function in the world. Just given how extroverted I am, given my personality, I think some people are able to kind of pull that off, to go to work and to be like, this is a place that I go and they pay my paycheck and then I go home and I see those people there and I talk to them, but they're not like, quote, friends. But for me, even now, granted, I think it'd be really hard to work somewhere as long as I have and not have work friends. But even before I worked somewhere so long, at other places I worked, I developed those friendships. I think what's hard about work, though, and this is where I say I've been burned in the past, is, out there in the real world, we talked about just like personal friendships. There are challenges to meeting people, and there can be challenges to trusting people. But I think in the work you do in the church, which we've alluded to this a little bit, and then being at work, you have to be careful too, because some people are your friends for, I guess, political gain or for what they think it will get them. And sometimes it's really hard to tell the people who may be kind of using you for that. The other thing is, some people are your friends. It's not like they're being manipulative about it, but they're just your friend out of convenience. Like, oh, we work side by side and we see each other every day. Normally we wouldn't be friends. Maybe we have nothing in common, or may not even particularly
like have in common is
that you show up to the same place and your office proximity or what have you. And so there are those folks that, like, you may think you're really close to them, but the minute they get another job or transition to another department in the company, you kind of never hear from them again. So I think that's the hard thing. It takes a lot of time to really know who you can trust. And I think the other thing that is hard is because it's sort of like a dynamic of like school or a sports team or something where you really like the person and you're playing on a team, but then sometimes you may be pitted against each other, like at work. Somebody may be somebody needs to be blamed for something that didn't go well, or somebody wants to get the attention of the boss to climb the career ladder. And maybe you've worked as a team on something and you're working with somebody who, even though you thought they were your friend, they take credit for the work that you both did together.
Because I would think having friendships at work can only get to a certain level because you have that, because
of that dynamic.
You're both aiming for the same thing, or,
right.
Neither one of you want to be responsible for things that go wrong, but it may be one of yours fault,
right.
Or there's going to be other people at work you may get along with, but they don't. And then they're going to be like, why are you hanging out with them? Like, and work can almost be like a middle school lunchroom.
Well, and that's another great point you make. I'm
full of great points.
Well, but because of reporting relationships, that makes it difficult too. So like, I'm a friendly person. So if I report to someone or they report to me sometimes, and I want to have this friendship, you have to be super careful, because then other people will perceive it as like, well, you're giving special treatment to that person, or you're getting special treatment because they're your quote friend. And it may not be that, it's just like anything else. There's just certain people you kind of click with. And at work, there are people that I click with, not just in that I work well with them, but like, I enjoy them more, but it's super hard to navigate that, because sometimes there have been times over the course, and this isn't just about me and my friendships. I've seen this. I'm an employment lawyer, so I see a lot of things go wrong in the work world, and not just relationships of people like inappropriate dating or what have you, like that lead to harassment claims, but even just work relationships where people think they're close and then something happens and it goes wrong. I think that it's challenging because people try to set boundaries, but then the setting of boundaries is difficult. People get jealous. Some people are ambitious. Some people aren't trustworthy. I mean, you just have all those dynamics coming together. So when you can have a really good, true work friendship, it's probably kind of a miracle. The other thing I've found that's hard is that, well, two things. It is sometimes easier, I think, in that respect to have work friends maybe that wouldn't be kind of your competitor. So like where I work is so large. And since I'm a lawyer, I get to meet people in a lot of different departments. So sometimes it might be easier for somebody that works in like nursing to be friends with somebody in compliance than maybe it would be for two nurses on the floor, who work for the same boss to be friends, because then you are competing. But at the same time, I do think sometimes people do almost like this trauma bonding or something. If you have a bad boss, you see people who they're friends because they're united against a common enemy,
I don't think I've noticed that is through the years, there's been people who you've talked about like, I don't really get along with this person. I don't have anything in common. And then the next thing you know, I hear you on the phone talking, but it's like, what you're talking about is you do like the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
And you both have that knucklehead boss or that knucklehead coworker. And you're able to like, okay, now we've got something in common.
Right.
We both hate him.
Yeah. So we have to come together and we have to work together to decide how we overcome this person that is causing problems in the workplace kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean.
But the other thing that does happen that is disappointing is I think for me it's hard, and I've learned not to personalize it because I get that it is a function of the time. But the other thing that happens to me a lot is I'll work closely with certain people on certain things like big projects, or there's certain people, you probably hear me talk to certain ones like, okay, a certain person on teammate relations in HR, I may work with all the time. So just again, by my personality, I always end up, even if I don't intend to, knowing about their family, finding out what they like to do, starting to know them as a person, and kind of it transitions from just we're talking about this work thing to like we're talking about things in our personal life or things like that. But what's hard is then you invest in that. And then if that person's job changes, sometimes even at the same company, and that's happened a lot as our company has grown, like people that I used to work with all the time, they get moved like in a different reporting structure or to a different job. And even though we were really close friends, we then don't see each other and it's not that we don't like each other, but doing the same work and working on projects together made it so easy, to grab lunch or to talk after hours. Whereas,
and what about lunch? Like, you ever find that and I brought up the middle school lunchroom because I just watching you over the years, it feels like this at times. Like somebody doesn't get invited to lunch, and then do they feel like, well, what did I do? Why are they mad at me? Why do they? There's a lot of it. It seems like there's a lot of insecurities in corporate America.
I think there is, and I even read this thing too, that like there's as many like psychopaths or sociopaths and corporate executives as there is in prison or something. Who knows if that's really true? It was one of those like headlines that popped up. But I do think there's a lot of insecurity because also no one wants to go into a job and look like they don't know what they're doing or feel like, it's particularly like work, if you're an in-house attorney like I am, you need people to have a certain level of trust in you and in your ability to advise them and that you know what you're doing. So I think what happens is people are insecure in a lot of different ways. I think they're insecure in like, did I sound stupid in this meeting? Are people talking about me? I think they're insecure too, just like sometimes like, well, why were they invited and I wasn't? And sometimes we never know the answer to that. Sometimes it is just like I try to tell my kids, nothing was intentional. It's like I ran down to pick up my prescription at the pharmacy and saw somebody that I haven't seen in a month. And we're like, oh, well, let's pop into Starbucks and catch up. Some things organically happen. Sometimes people are left out, because again, they're that person that maybe everybody's like, I don't know. That I like, not everybody, but you have those people you don't click with. So I think it is hard. I think there is a lot more insecurity than people will admit. But it's that now we've given it a name, imposter syndrome and stuff, where people feel like they have to live up to this image, but inside they don't feel secure in it.
Well, I mean, I think with any walk of life, whether in your case as an attorney, or you may have an accountant or a nurse or a teacher or, a retail establishment, I mean, a restaurant. I mean, it can be anything. Inevitably, people are going to get promoted that don't have a clue what they're doing.
Yes.
And eventually, and they can only fake it for so long.
Yes.
And eventually they're going to get to a point where they're going to be so far over their head that everyone else is having to pick up the slack for them.
Yes.
But probably they're at a position at that point where you can't complain about them to many more people higher than them.
Right. Yeah. Because they have risen through the ranks. And I think that's the other thing that's really difficult is like in the workplace. I think a lot of, at least my generation, we Gen X women were kind of like told like, you can have a family and you can work and you can do all these things and you can do them all at once, but really you can't. But we were also sort of, at least for me, I feel like one of the things that was instilled in me, not just by my parents, but by teachers, by everybody, was like, you work really hard, just like in school where you work really hard and you supposedly get an A, you feel like in the workplace, you work really hard and you eventually get promoted. You pretty quickly realize in corporate America that working really hard may factor in like 10% to whether you're promoted. The other 90% could be who knows what. And especially now,
yeah, I mean, I'm sure
like where people move all the time.
10% is based on merit.
Right.
Merit and what you know and how you perform. And the other 90% is who you know.
Well, it's who you know. And it's also in these days, in this world, what are you willing to do for that promotion? Mm-hmm. Are you willing to move across the country every 3 years? Because that's the other thing we've talked about. Gone are the days where anybody stays, like I'm a dinosaur, like I have read all, if you read on LinkedIn, no, but if you read on LinkedIn, all the advice is like, if you've stayed somewhere 3 to 5 years, you're already staying too long and you're not getting paid enough because now what's being instilled in people, whether accurate or not, but the only way you get paid what you're worth and keep progressing is to leave and go somewhere else. And we see that where we work because we have so many things where it's like, even though they try to come up with like succession planning and things like that, you see so many times when people are like, oh, we need to hire somebody from the outside. And it's like, we always think that somebody, in another industry or from another company knows more. The problem that creates is what you said. Then there's no merit / work that went into it. It's all about how good your resume is, how well you interview, how you sell yourself as
and
opposed
that ultimately makes the friend pool a lot more shallow.
Right.
Because you become resentful toward all those people that
yes,
you normally might have something in common with, but you're like, you either don't deserve this position,
right?
You didn't earn it, or you're resentful because you didn't get it, or you're resentful because of how it went down. I mean, there's things that are just human nature.
And certain positions where I work, the revolving door has been set. This is not in the legal department. This is in other areas that I work with. There's been such a revolving door that, like, I counted one time. I think there were like 6 different people in like a 2.5 year period in the role. I get to the point where I'm like, I can't invest in this work relationship. Like I will answer your questions, but you're probably going to be gone in 6 months. And so it's not worth my time and effort.
Why invest?
Because it's too hard for me to like start over again and again, like getting to know them. And I think that happens, and that's hard. To your point, it makes for a more shallow relationship, because the other thing that's changed now is the world is hybrid, as people sometimes are working remotely. A lot of the friendships I have at work are because those are long-standing friendships with people that I worked in the office with, that I got to know because of that proximity. Their door's right there. I got to know them. That helped us build something. It's a lot easier to meet for lunch, whatever. To your point about the lunch thing, now, like, if people are at home or one person's at home and two people are in the office and you have to drive to get everywhere to meet, it's just harder to do those things and to even, I think, invest and build those relationships because people are all over. Even if people are working in the office, we've talked about this with our friend like Doug and people like that. Most of your team may be in another state, or the people you work with daily. So even if you're going in the office, those aren't the people you're working with, which then kind of feeds into that whole thing we were talking about. Like, it's easier when you're working on a project and in a team to get to know somebody. So sometimes even that proximity of like, well, we both show up and I see you and say, hey, and then I go sit on my computer all day on Zoom. You're not building that anymore.
Yeah. And for me, being in ministry my whole life, unless you work at a mega church that has a ton of staff.
Yeah.
I mean, you really don't have those people at work.
You don't have the quote co-workers that you're seeing every day.
My peers become fellow pastors.
Right.
And for whatever reason, pastors in general, they don't do a good job of making friends with one another.
Right.
And I think for the most part, the majority of them, I don't know if they feel territorial,
it's like competitive. You're my competition. How can I be your friend?
It's like if multiple restaurant owners wouldn't hang out, because they're all fighting for the same customers. And so
I guess it could be easier, like if you have French food and somebody else has American breakfast food. So, if you're with somebody in a totally different state or a different denomination that never would cross over.
But even then, I think they feel like the denominational thing I feel like
but then I feel like they feel like they don't align.
Yeah,
also, I think spiritually with you or something.
And so, and the turnover, I've been a pastor in Kernersville for over 20 years.
You're also a dinosaur.
And I am a dinosaur.
I'm a T-Rex. I don't know about you with the short little hands. What are you?
I'm whatever the fat, slow one is. That's what I am now.
Brontosaurus.
But I could probably count on one hand the number of pastors that have been here as long or close to as long as I have.
Right.
Like they go away, they retire, or they're in a denomination that moves them. And so, you can't ever make friends.
Right.
And to be honest, I don't like most pastors. I don't my buddy, mentor, Mike Willard, and I used to talk all the time about pastors are the worst, like they just, because they are so guarded with themselves. You never get the authentic person. He or she always feels like they have to put up some type of front, and
because they don't trust people. Just like we talked about with the book club and the trust and being judged by people. If you've spent your life feeling judged,
they don't trust their congregation. To be, so that they can be transparent.
Right.
So they don't trust other pastors.
Right.
And so they all feel like phonies.
Yeah.
They all feel like they're just putting up some kind of, mask. They're all posers.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like, I don't have time for that.
Right.
And some people like being fellow posers. It's like you see a group of them just sitting around talking and laughing it up. And none of them are being authentic. It's just like, well, we're enjoying the shallowness of this.
Right.
And I just look at it and I'm like,
you just described a lot of really weird work networking type of forced events. That's what it's a bunch of shallow people like, let's talk about the weather. And then what else can we talk about after the weather? You've got to get to the next shallow topic.
And we've tried to have some clergy groups in our town with different denominations. And there was a point where there was one that was really strong for a while. Mm-hmm. But I'm the only one left. All the rest have retired, quit, moved. There's none of them there. And so it's just hard to kind of get anything up and going.
Which feeds into the sad thing you were talking about, though, too, because you have had some pastor friends that are close over the years. But to your point, the ones that you want to stay tend to move away, and like just like we talked about, like sometimes, the people who stay at work aren't necessarily, or stay in the little group you have may not be the ones that you connected with. And so that makes it even harder when the ones you connected with have to leave.
Oh yeah. Like my buddy Kel,
Yeah.
he was probably locally the most kindred spirit I had in a pastor friend. And now he's a hospice chaplain in Oregon.
Right.
You
literally
can't get
on the other side of the country.
Away.
Yeah.
And so we talk on the phone. He comes back to North Carolina once or twice a year, to visit his mom. So we'll try to get up, but it's not the same. And then one of my very best friends, James, he's a pastor in Oklahoma. How often am I seeing James? There's not that hangout. We talk on the phone a lot, but, so having that, I've never had a close pastor friend. I just haven't. And
see, I think that's sad. And that's the one thing I think about too. Like, I was talking about some of the negatives of the friendship, but like, I think I'd shared with you my friend John. I have this friend John that I worked with years ago, and he's from Boston. And so the first time I met him, I'd just seen The Departed. And so I was like, geez, does everybody in Boston talk like they do on The Departed? Dropping all those F-bombs and saying all this stuff. And he automatically, I think, knew that I was crazy. And then I would, the kids were little, and I remember telling him a story one day, like he called or something. And I was like, well, my kids, were out catching tadpoles in the mud. And so he would go around and do his fake Beth accent and his Boston accent, like, Beth's kids are out catching tadpoles in the mud. But we had this, like, we worked together. He was in HR and I was in legal, and we worked together so closely. But he's somebody that it really enriched my life and still does. Like, he messaged me and was like, I think I'd read this one to you, like, it was a few months ago, but kind of just saying out of the blue, like, hey, I've worked with some attorneys, and I really miss like the collegiality. I miss the team. I miss the partnership. And so not only did I get that good relationship with him at work, but it also like enriched my life in this way, because when else would I be working, like with this person from Boston, from a completely different background in all ways. There's no other place we would have intersected except at work. And I think that's the sad thing about what you're saying about like pastors in the church, and this like sometimes like reluctance for people to be authentic and to just the growth and the like, I don't know, just learning from each other.
Mm-hmm. Ministry is a lonely place.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to be friends with people in the church.
Right. It's kind of that same dynamic of being friends with people that you report to or that report to you at work,
Because no matter what, they're 99.9% of the time, unless there's somebody very special in the way they view the world, there's a hierarchy.
It's a power differential,
yes,
even if you don't think about it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a teacher hanging out with a principal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's still that dynamic at work
Right.
that's odd or
right.
whatever. And so it's hard.
Well, it's almost like the workplace, though. You can have that with your parishioners. Like, you can have somebody like, well, why is the pastor out going to lunch with Joe's family and not, Sue's? Like, it's that same thing. Just like we talked about, we have seen that in ministry where people are like, well, why are you hanging out with that one person so much? And it's just kind of like, well, just like you hang out with certain people from church more than others, it's the same thing.
And I've heard that. Somebody will be like, oh, I was having lunch with Pastor Mike the other day. And they're like, I've never had lunch with Pastor Mike.
Yeah.
I'm like, then ask me.
Exactly.
These people are inviting me most of the time.
Yeah.
It's not, I'm not sitting around with a Rolodex saying, who can I go have lunch with today? And, if it happens, it happens. And, but yeah, ministry's lonely. Ministry's lonely from a friend's perspective because you don't click with other pastors. Yeah. And it's hard to really click with church members, you know, just because there is that line. And even some that I thought were friends, the minute they didn't get what they wanted at some point, they get mad and leave. And
just
it's
like I talked about early on too, the person that you think is your friend, but really they're just kind of like, well, I'm your friend as long as you can get me somewhere. But then once they pass me by or I don't get them what they need, then they're on to the next best thing. And you're right. That's what
why
happens.
I'm fortunate to have you as my best friend.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Am I your best friend, Beth?
No.
Well, that concludes our podcast. Not just today, but forever.
No, I don't mean to be mean, but like, I don't know. I think it's a different dynamic.
And I say all that
friends.
jokingly. I know you and I have had this conversation, and I'm going to upset some people.
Yeah.
And you're going to upset some people with our hot take. Can I say we?
Yeah.
We
are not each other's.
Do not believe a spouse can be your best friend.
Yeah.
Like the spouse is at a different level.
Right.
You know,
it's a different relationship than a friend.
It is a totally different. And the spouses that we've seen that have tried to make their spouse their best friend, it is a very codependent, unhealthy relationship. I mean, it just is. And, you know, they seem to be the ones that are the most sensitive. They seem to be the ones that have the most drama for whatever reason, you know, and maybe that's why they cling to each other as spousal best friends, because they do have trauma from friends hurting them in the past, or they're afraid to put themselves out there. But the friendship between a husband and wife is so different than the friendship you would have with a best friend of the same sex. Yeah. You know, and I don't think a male and female can be best friends.
See, you and I have disagreed on that. I don't know. I mean, I
think women are naive, if that's what you think.
Oh my God.
I think if a dude is like, she's my best friend, he has one thing in mind.
Okay, well, you know what? We have a child that might say that they have a best friend of another gender. So, I mean, I don't want to reveal because we only have 3 kids. But so that.
And he may have one thing in mind. I'm just saying. So, I mean, it's just, there's something about a male best friendship and a female best friendship. Like, dudes can't understand what women go through. You just can't. And so what you're going through feeling as a woman, as biologically as a woman, you know, stages of life as a woman, as a mom, like guys cannot understand that. And women can't understand what guys go through, you know, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all this other stuff. Like you have to have that kindred spirit of the same sex, I think, to truly be that best friend because they get you, you know, like I can empathize and sympathize with you, you know, on things, but I think no less than 5 times a day you say, I know you don't understand.
I know I do.
Right?
Yes, I do.
Like you start off so many, your 2 favorite sentences to say is, I know you don't understand, but fill in the blank, and I may get you to do this. Which means you're going to go do this.
Yes, I may get you to. I may, you know, if you're up for it.
But you're right. I don't understand. I can sympathize, empathize. I can be there to support you, but I don't get it. You know, I mean, let's face it. We're both 50, right? Like, I don't understand menopause, you know, which is what women of this age start to go through. Like, I don't get those hormone shifts, you know,
even like today, I talked to some girlfriends about this dynamic that was different just in our interaction, like being a mom and kind of like the feelings you feel towards your kids and certain pressures or expectations you have that most of the time we don't see dads experiencing those same things. And I think before when I've said some things to you over the years as a mom about like mom guilt or something, you're like, huh? Like, I mean, the example I gave is like, if I have to travel for work and then somebody asks me to travel and do something with friends when the kids were younger and in the house with us, I remember I'd be like, well, I really want to do that. But in the end, I'm going to pick like being with my kids because, I'm going to feel guilty if I go do both of those and I'm gone too much. Where I don't think y'all don't do all those calculations of like, how many days have I been with the kids and am I being fair and should I go do, I think y'all just like, it's just not something, I don't know that there's a dad guilt that's equivalent to mom guilt. I'm not saying you don't have your own form of it. I think y'all have different, but to your point, that's something that like I can talk to any number of moms about and they're all like, yes. And it seems like they get it. But I feel like guys are just like, what? Well, we don't do that, or we don't think that way about that.
Yeah. And I think because for the most part, men are simple creatures. I think for every husband and dad, it boils down to provide and protect. Mm-hmm. Am I providing for my family? Am I protecting my family? And when a man doesn't feel like they're doing one or both of those, that's when they have crisis. Mm-hmm. And I think midlife crisis often hits men worse than it hits women. Women can chalk. There's a almost biological, like, well, my body's going through some changes that's making me think crazy or differently and all this kind of stuff. And men, like, it started with me a few years ago. I just started feeling depressed in times I didn't used to feel depressed in, or anxiety about things, or apathy about things, or lack of energy. And I remember talking to my counselor, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, is this midlife crisis? And he said, it's exactly what it is. And I was like, so what do I do? And he said,
I know what you don't do, but anyway, keep going.
He said, don't have an affair.
That's what I was going to say.
And don't go buy a sports car.
I was going to say that. Yeah, don't do those two things.
He said, anything else, you're fine. Don't have an affair. Don't buy a sports car. And I was like, that's it. That's all I can do. He was like, you just got to
power through it.
You just got to power through it and kind of resist these temptations and urges to shake things up, because you're going through this midlife crisis as a man, and you're reevaluating your life, and you're looking, is my life what I thought it would be? Have I been the husband I should have been? Have I been the father? And a lot of men, if the answer is no, then all of a sudden they're like, well, let's start over, and divorce rates are so high around this age. And
I think for women, it's like, it's so hard because, we do the same thing, but like you said, I think we've got so much else going on in our bodies and everything, like with hormone shifts. So part of it we attribute to that. But I think that's the other hard thing, to your point, that I talk about in counseling, because I sit down all the time and I'll be like, okay, I'm having this, and I don't know if it's perimenopause, if it's depression, if it's anxiety, if it's just that I'm way too stressed and have too many things going on, or maybe it is my life circumstances. Maybe nothing's going on, it's nothing internal about me. Maybe it's external, or maybe it's all those things. And I think it's like, for us, it's that hard thing of, that transition and that mental shift of like letting go of your children, and, then who you are is changing. And that's one of the things I've said to you when I say, I know you don't understand, but like, I don't even feel like me inside of me. And that is a really hard place to be, and I think that's why, your hormones are all over the place. So sometimes you're hateful or you're depressed and you don't know why, and you lash out at people you love the most, or you're so exhausted, you withdraw into yourself. But like, your body, I've had these thoughts, and I think some of my other friends have too, where I'm like, I feel like my body is betraying me. Like my body is working against me. And that's a hard thing, because it's not, but I think this is one thing, yay, Gen X, our generation, for starting to talk about these things, because so many other generations, like, I feel like women were shamed around so many of these things. They never talked about it, but men probably need to talk more about what happens. You guys have hormones too. I'm not saying you have things to the extent that women do, but your body changes. Things to happen as you age. I just think people need to talk about it more, so then you don't feel like you are crazy. And I think, to your point about, I think that's why so many people would have nervous breakdowns or they go do things or divorce or whatever, because you feel like you're the only one. And then you talk to other people and you're like, I'm not.
And we'll circle back. That's one of the reasons why I don't think your spouse can be your best friend. Just because you've got to be able to understand one another. And like I said, I know there's going to be some spouse that's going to chime in and write in or say, my spouse is my best friend. Well, get a new friend.
Well, my thing is, I think it's too much pressure to have me be your everything, to be your spouse, to be your best friend, to be like that. I think that's for me.
No, that is a great point. I've had a friend of mine say that to me he said, I can't be my wife's emotional support animal.
Right.
Like he said, she need, and I get that. Like there's only so much emotional support I can give you without snapping or breaking or, you know what I mean?
But also you're not their savior. Yeah. And essentially if you put everything into one person, you're kind of making them an idol. You're kind of expecting them to be the savior, to be the answer to everything that you have. And one person, it's completely unfair to that person, because no matter what, they're going to fail.
Yeah.
Because one person can't fix everything that may be a problem for you in your life. And so I think that for me, that's why when you ask that, you're like, am I? And I'm like, no. And I will also say I have, we've talked about before too, multiple different, probably what I would consider best friends. But I mean, I have, people that I rely on in different ways.
Yeah. And I don't use the term, I have a best friend.
Right.
I don't. And I have a very shallow pool of a few very close friends.
Right.
That confidants I can talk to, and not feel judged. I mean,
because why does everything have to be ranked and labeled?
Right.
It's just like I think that creates that dynamic, like we're talking about in school or on a team or in the workforce. If everybody's ranked, like we're all trying to be Mike's best friend. Well,
you can't be everything to one person.
Right. Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah. It's just too much pressure and not fair to either person in the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So we stirred up something last week and talking about, I don't know how we got on it, but friendships and dynamics of friendships. And, I know that it started out looking at life through the lens of that television show Yellow Jackets.
Yes.
Which were about 5 episodes away from being completely caught up.
And we are on the complete crazy train now, because I am watching that show and I get so mad and so upset on behalf of some of the people that I almost crawl out of my skin.
Yeah, I know. Well, and so we asked the question, you and I were talking about the question of, if it was, the
end of the world
dystopian type society.
Yeah.
There's an end of the world.
Zombies
you're having to restart things.
Yeah.
What would your gifts be and my gifts be? What could we bring to the table? Yeah. And you said you would just be there for entertainment and a morale booster.
I do think I could. When I saw on this thing that you said leadership, I'm like, well, I can be a leader, but I guess it depends. I don't know what leader they need at the time, because if you need a leader that's gonna send half the group into the wilderness because there's not enough food or something, I don't want to do that.
Well, we're going to break this down because this is very interesting.
Okay.
So we're going to go through the poll results. This has probably been one of the most voted on polls we've ever done.
I'm glad we thought of that. Look at us being creative.
And then we'll get into some comments.
Yeah, yes.
So, first of all, if the pool of people that voted, if this was the people that we had to rely on, we would all die.
Okay, good to know.
Because 50% of the people voted they would either be the entertainment or morale booster or leadership.
These are my people. They're me. Those are the two
And what are you going to lead?
I don't know, because we're all going to starve.
A comedy store?
We're going to starve, or the zombies are going to get us because there's nobody to defend us or know what mushrooms to eat.
So we'll start at the next highest. 27% said that they would be good at farming and gardening.
Oh, good. Okay.
So they can grow it. And I'm going to assume we didn't put cooking on there.
But it kind of falls in
I'm going to say if you can farm it and garden you could probably figure out a way to cook it. You know?
Or at least make it edible in some form or fashion.
I mean, at the end of the day, you just boil water, throw it in there, or you start a fire.
Oh, you mean like ham water? Like on Arrested Development?
Yes.
Anyway.
So 27% said they would grow food. 13% said they had medical knowledge.
Okay, not a lot.
Not a lot.
We can't get injured.
But you know, if you're looking at society, I mean, 13% of the population might have some kind of knowledge of first aid medical stuff. 10% said that they would use weapons for protection. Okay. They knew how to use weapons.
So that's but okay.
And I'm gonna throw in the weapons for also like hunting.
Yes.
You know, so
because we might need some protein.
0% said they knew how to build structures or repair structures. So we're going to have to rely on the buildings that are already here, and God forbid something happened to them, because then we just got to move to a new house.
But if there's YouTube, JD can watch it. Now, we're in trouble, though, if the grid goes down.
There's no electricity in this world. There's no internet. You don't think calling up Spectrum
there's
to
an old
fix your
paper instruction manual somehow of how to build an outdoor
I'm not
structure?
envisioning that at all.
Okay, gotcha. So we're in trouble.
We're just like, we're all living off the grid, essentially.
Yes.
Literally, you just having to survive. So, comments. Let's get in. There's a bunch of comments. And let's see.
This was pretty good, though. I'm pretty excited about how many people
There were some wives that volunteered their husbands.
Their
husbands did not comment, but Shelly said Sam can build stuff. And then she said, you saw them skills in Jamaica.
That's right.
And I did. I went to Jamaica with Sam, and I saw Sam in Jamaica. I didn't see many skills.
You're just getting back at Sam, but for talking to us about how.
Well, here's the problem. Sam is an accountant by trade, and he knows computers. I don't know how well that's going to translate. I mean, I saw him.
He could do some spreadsheets.
He built a computer lab in Jamaica. It was incredible and much needed.
Yes.
But if we don't have electricity or internet, all right, Bill Gates, what you going to do for me now? Shelley goes on to say, I can process animals and grow vegetables. And she said, I'm still working on my plant growing skills, but I can process a rabbit in less than 10 minutes.
See, there you go. Now we've got somebody to help us.
I found that disturbing.
Why?
I don't know why. When she wrote that, the first thing that popped in my mind was Fatal Attraction. With the rabbit in the boiling water, I'm like, how did she learn this skill?
So if she had used something other than a rabbit,
maybe
you'd have been cool with it, like a squirrel or a pig.
Well, then Taryn follows that up with, I'll learn how to make Hassan pfeffer stew. I don't even know if I said that right. Taryn has thrown out some words to us. Bonita or something like that, and now Hassan's puffer. I thought that was a house in Harry Potter.
It's like I was going to say you are getting it confused. I knew you were going to get it confused with Hufflepuff.
What the heck does Harry Potter have to do? It's
rabbit stew.
I know. I looked it up. I was like, this can't be a real word. And I looked it up, and it is a real word. Only Taryn knows it.
Yeah, not to be confused with the house in Harry Potter.
Yes, but she can make some rabbit stew. Mm-hmm. So, and Taryn threw in there. She was like, I don't know how to hunt and grow, but I can put a meal together.
There you go.
I need her.
She is going to be very important.
She is my right hand
As is Shelly, because she's going to be going and getting the rabbits and working them up.
I'm a little worried about Shelly. And then Shirley writes in. Shirley also nominated her husband, Tommy, to grow food, build, do construction, use weapons, and protection.
He can do all that, but that's a lot of pressure on somebody that's not even listening to the podcast.
And I intentionally set the poll that you can only choose one thing.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
there's some people that think very highly of themselves. And I was like, I don't need, just tell me what's the one thing you can bring to the table.
Right.
Well, old Shirley says, it would only let me choose one thing. So she was a little upset. She chose grow food.
Yeah.
And then she nominated Tommy for everything else that could be done.
So she won't pick one.
Probably close to real life. So I told Shirley, don't be a glory hole.
Gosh. Oh, okay.
And then Shirley took a jab at our generation.
Oh.
And younger. Shirley said,
okay.
people can have more than one skill, but I do think the older generation could survive more easily than the younger. So she's trying to play the Little House on the Prairie card. That, back in my day.
Right.
And
back
that's
when
fine.
she was building the cabin out in the woods and
But
making
come on.
soap and
You're 80. How long do you think you're going to be around?
she's going to get really
she's not
upset
80.
with
She
you.
is over 70. I'm just saying, you ain't outrunning something.
She's going to have to be the one that has the wisdom to convey so that everybody else who's forgotten the skills of making the soap
So
and
now
stuff
she's
can
the
learn.
teacher now. So
Yes,
she's the
you
queen.
should have included that on there, like the wisdom, sort of like the chief wisdom person or something that passes down the instruction.
Well, the highest percentage went to leadership and organization.
Right.
And so there can only be so many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's a problem. We've seen. We have a pretty headstrong friend group and church group and people like that. A lot of leaders in there, but yeah, somebody's going to have to be the leader.
And we saw that on Yellow Jackets.
Yeah.
Because there has to be a leader.
And then everybody starts fighting for
then
it.
people start fighting for it, and somebody doesn't get it, and they get mad or whatever. But yeah, somebody's got to be.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to, one of my favorite scenes, and I relate to this scene a lot, it's in The Walking Dead. And it's toward the end of season 3, maybe. Rick Grimes gives a speech at the season finale. And he says, this is no longer a democracy. This is a dictatorship. I'm making the decisions from here on. Because he had tried to make it a democracy and let everyone have a say. And it was just going downhill. And so he had to do a rally and be like, this is a dictatorship. I've got to there has to be a leader, and I'm going to be that leader. And I get that. I mean, there's times, when you got to be willing to do the hard stuff and make the hard decisions.
Yeah.
And people want to be leaders until that happens. And then they don't want to be leaders. And I can make those hard decisions, and I've had to make those hard decisions. And one of the coolest gifts I've ever been given in ministry is I was given this plaque and a framed picture. I don't even know if you've ever even paid attention to it, but it's one of those word collages, where people submit words and they create it into a picture or whatever, and they framed it and gave it to me. And I don't know who said it, but somebody wrote in there, it's on there, and I look at it every day of my life. It says, Rick Grimes like leader. And I wear that as a badge of honor.
You are like, that is me.
That is, I can do it. So yeah, I mean.
But in this world, we're going to have trouble because our leaders, we have to decide if we vote on them, or do we just kind of do like a Hunger Games, like put them all in like some sort of like pit and let them fight it out. I don't know, like how are you going to choose between all those leaders?
I wasn't planning on doing this. Let's go through this list of leaders. Let's just pull out a few of them.
Oh gosh, I don't know that. Well, I guess they did make it public if they voted on it, but okay.
Laura.
Yes.
We know Laura.
Yes.
I mean, she's in a leadership position.
She is. Yes.
She would probably be okay with some organization. Maybe.
Yes.
I'm just saying. James.
Giggle.
I mean, James. Here's one I'd like to see.
James is hitting unsubscribe from the podcast right now.
Co-worker Kristen.
That's
your
nice.
coworker.
My coworker. Yes. I like the way you qualify it.
Well,
yes.
what do you think?
I think
Could she do it?
I think she could, but I think she would be like me. It would depend on the type of leader needed. And I do think that's an important factor in this as we look at the people, because again, I think she's like me in that if you need somebody that can listen and be compassionate and then ultimately decide, yes. But if you need somebody, like I said, that's going to be like, all right, we're exiling half the people because we can't feed them or something. Yeah, we probably want somebody else to do that. It's just like we've talked about with organizations. You know, sometimes a company needs like a visionary and inspirer. Sometimes they need somebody to come in and like fire half the people, you know, different types of leaders for different situations. Kristen and I probably don't want to be the firing half the people leaders.
Well, and I'll jump over to entertainment and morale booster, right? Because I said combined, that's 50% of the votes.
Yes.
They were, I didn't know this. They were all women but one.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that's, what do you mean, oh? Like,
I just think that's just fascinating. We women, we're really caring about the
I
morale and
think it shows the
entertainment.
modern women don't think they had no skills.
That is not. Listen, we all have skills. We just don't have skills when the power goes down.
The world.
We will save the world as long as we're on the grid. We just aren't going to save the world, you know, like if there's no electricity and stuff. We bring different skills to the table.
And the one guy is a South Carolina youth pastor.
Tom Watson.
Yes.
Yes,
So,
I can he would, because he can do that trick with his quarter and his nose.
He can put $1 worth of, no, how much was it? It was,
yeah.
Then it was more than that. It was
a lot.
I think it was like $2 worth of quarters. So 8 quarters in each nostril.
Yeah, and still breathe and function. And he doesn't have an abnormally large nose or anything. It's not like he's going to hold all that.
I mean, because he's been stretching them out for years for that dumb human trick. So he 100% though has earned his spot there as the entertainer. Well, and when you spell Tom with a TH, you know that you're not bringing a lot of other skills to the table.
Thom, as we affectionately call
Tom
him.
Watson,
yes,
is there. So
yes.
I don't even know if he listens to our podcast.
But he voted.
He's getting ridiculed.
Yes.
He did see it. He does follow us. He did vote.
Oh, I love it.
Last little bit of stuff. We'll wrap up with this because it's about time to wrap it up. Pickleball. As we sit here recording this, Beth is dressed for pickleball.
I'm ready.
You look like you're going out to play tennis.
I think like looking, I'm learning. I used to just go to the gym or wear whatever ratty clothes. But for this, I feel like if I look the part a little more, I'm going to live into the part.
Well, you got like a tennis tank top and a tennis short skirt, shorts skirt.
It's a skirt.
A skirt.
But like I am dressing for the position I want,
okay,
not the position I have.
Gotcha.
The position I have right now would probably be like you were that day. I'd be out in like Hey Dudes or something, you know, not dressed at all because for the part because I'm not good at it.
Well, we just
up.
Played yesterday.
Yeah,
and it was the hottest day of the spring so far. We about had heat. I about had heat stroke. Poor Ross did. And
that was terrible.
My back is sore. I don't know if I can go. I know you want to go play today, but
you have to just loosen up. You got to twist and do some stretches and stuff to get ready. But
pickleball still going.
But that'll be our message to people: dress for the position you want,
and
stretch.
That's my problem.
Yes.
Is I go from 0 to 100.
Yeah,
I just roll off the couch,
just like your couch to run a 5K that time. Yeah, just like literally your couch to 5K.
Without doing any stretching, anything, and just play for an hour and a half straight.
And then you wonder why your rotator cuff and other things are like a problem.
My ankle sore?
Yeah,
I don't stretch.
Yes,
I need to stretch.
Yeah,
and for me, improv that has probably come to an end.
Oh, and
unpleasant. So I did the first 3 sessions, which was Improv 101 or whatever they call it. And then they have another 3 sessions of Improv 201. And after those 3, then you put on a show. And so we had some folks, including myself, some other people in 101 that wanted to do the 201. And so we all signed up and paid. And just me and another girl were the only 2 people that showed up the last 2 weeks.
Which is crazy because I always felt like that was one reason sometimes we would ask people when we would have church events to pay a small amount because it's like, well, if they have to pay $10, then they're more likely to show up. But obviously that is not true anymore. People are willing, because you said this was like 50 or something dollars.
$70.
$70. Yeah. So
I mean,
people are willing to just
just
pay
flushed it down
$70
the
and
toilet.
not do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts. So
Not me. I'd be like, I paid $70. I have got to go be there.
Yeah. So this past week, me and this other girl showed up again. And so the teacher / owner, Jenny, she gave us a few options. She said, look, she's like, I'm finishing up intro class right now. I know several of them want to do the next class, like the 201. You guys are more than welcome just to start coming to their classes if you want, beginning this week.
Yes.
Option 2, and I found this very nice. She said, you 2 are both good enough to join. Go ahead and join our improv group. And
Which is really, that's
a big
more
deal.
than like the pickleball instructor said to me about moving on to the next level.
Right.
But
He
anyway,
did
so
suggest
that's
that.
quite an honor for you.
So they have at the Idiot Box, they have an improv troupe that performs throughout the month. And you practice once a week. And then Jenny puts out the schedule. You let her know what days you can be there. She schedules you, and then you go and perform.
Yeah.
And you do improv. And so she told me and this girl, she was like, if y'all want, you're on the troupe, which was cool.
Which is really cool. Yeah.
But I also talked to Jenny about stand-up, and her husband teaches stand-up, a 5-week stand-up class. And so she also threw out to me, she said, if you want to do the stand-up class, I'll just roll this money into that and you can take that class. And so I told her I would think about it, but I'm kind of leaning that way. I think I want to try the stand-up and just see what happens. Because
and then you can always go back and do the improv. It's not like you foreclosed that as an option.
Right.
Just you try both, see what you like more, what clicks, and go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe I do that. It'll be clean comedy, then go to some
The
comedy
only
gigs
thing
at
I
churches.
resent about it is, as you've told me, all the things you think about doing in your stand-up, they are all like funny things about things I've done. So they're at my expense. You know, the way y'all treat me is so bad that the other Sunday we went to play pickleball. And our friend Sean and Ross and you and me, and then later Maddie showed up to play. And y'all were being so relentless, like in your comments to me, that this man who was teaching his daughter to play tennis was like, "Wow, Beth, it seems like you're the one that they really give a hard time." And I was like, "Yes, why is that? Y'all are just like me being the topic of the stand-up routine."
He stopped and watched for a little bit. And he understood. He kind of gave me that look like, I get it now.
Did he now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He's like, I stand corrected,
Yes.
or I fully understand why you treat her that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you go listen to, say, a Nate Bargatze, like that's somebody I would copy my comedy on. Like he just tells a story and tells it in a humorous way.
Right.
I'm not going to be one of those comics with like one-liners.
Yeah.
Or it's going to set a joke up with some kind of like, wow, that was at the end. It's going to be just a funny story.
Yeah.
Life observation type stuff. And almost all of his is about him and his wife or him and his kid. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, he'll tell some stories about friends, but in it, he's, just telling humorous life stories.
Yeah.
And I think people realize that it's embellished a little bit or exaggerated, for
You
the
don't
sake
have
of
to
laughs.
embellish or exaggerate most of what you've got in there. That
No, I don't.
it was like completely all real, which is even sadder.
They had open mic last night at the Idiot Box. And I was about 50-50 in going. I almost went and thought maybe I'll just do an open mic just to see what happens.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems to me like doing a class, or I don't know, then I would just feel more prepared.
Well, the only reason Jenny was telling me that the other week, because I was asking her, I was like, how was open mic? Like, And she was like, sometimes there's some really funny people.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's just like,
there's not.
Why are you up there?
Yes.
She said a girl got up there the other week and had some story happen to her that she thought was funny, wrote it down on her phone, and got up there and read it from her phone.
Oh, dear. Okay. That's painful.
Yes.
Yeah.
She said nobody. They just sat there like, what? And this girl was up there laughing while she was telling the story. She thought it was so funny, but nobody else did. Now, Jenny told me an interesting thing. She said what she's learned by running this and owning this comedy club. And Jenny owns the Idiot Box. She runs the North Carolina Comedy Festival every year, which is like a week-long festival of comedians and stuff all over the state. She said white people will laugh at anything because she said white people, and Jenny's white, and Jenny said they feel uncomfortable for the person up there, and they feel like they have to at least chuckle.
Even if it's not funny?
Even if it's not funny, just to like...
Ease the tension or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like she said, so there was people that were like, like at that girl, but you could tell it was just like,
kind of like people when there's
bad.
silence and somebody has to feel it, they can't sit in silence.
She said people of color, Black, Asian, Indian, whatever. She said people of color will not laugh unless it's funny. She said for whatever reason, their mentality is, you're supposed to make me laugh, and if you don't make me laugh, you're not doing your job. And they refuse. She said they will not laugh unless it's funny. But then she said on the flip side, white people, she's like, their laughter only gets to a certain level because they don't want to draw attention to themselves, or they're like, should I be laughing at this?
Right.
Is this...
Because they're uncomfortable, like it might not be politically correct or whatever to laugh at this.
So she said, white people will laugh at anything, but only laugh so much. People of color will not laugh unless it's funny. But if they think it's funny, there's no limit to how hard they'll laugh. And she said they'll blow the roof off laughing if they really think it's funny. And so I thought that was really interesting. And she's like, I've just learned this over the last however many years from owning this comedy club. She was like, that is exactly, she's like, it's not 100%.
Well, of course nothing is, because it's just like when we talk about anything else, like gender or any of those things, you don't want to stereotype, but she probably is certain things probably culturally you pick
Isn't
up.
That odd,
that like, but I do think about me, I'm like, oh, well, how do I laugh? And I probably chuckle if something, even if it's not funny, because I feel bad.
We've seen Nate Bargatze a few times. We've seen Jim Gaffigan a few times.
Yeah.
We've seen Jerry Seinfeld a few times. We've seen now Dusty Slay. We laugh hard to the point that we're crying. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I feel like we're in an environment where if you look around,
everybody is
everyone looks the same. Yeah. Like we are not in a mixed environment.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that there's not people of color at those comedy shows, but 90% are just middle-class white Americans, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think you feel more comfortable that, well, if they're laughing, I'm laughing. And these are all clean comics, so there's not the uncomfortable, should I be laughing at this, Now,
they're not going to have many racy jokes that like could be offensive, know. Like
now, I've always wanted to see Dave Chappelle. He's one of my all-time favorites. But I wonder how I would react, because if I'm watching him at home, he does a lot of racial humor, a lot of really edgy stuff. Yeah. I find myself laughing.
But are you like inside? You're like, oh.
If I'm in a crowd with people of color, you know what I mean? And it's like, am I going to laugh as hard as I will in private? Because I don't know if I should be laughing or not. Like I can definitely see me at a Chappelle concert.
Kind of self-regulating your laughter.
Not laughing as hard as I would at a Nate Bargatze show, even though they might both be equally funny. Right. I would be much more reserved at a Chappelle show or something like that, where there's a more of a diverse audience.
That's also probably going to be in your head, though, because I don't know what kind of audiences these have. But if you look and you're practicing, like, and we're all like chuckling now, you're going to be like, oh, is this measured chuckling that they're just doing because they have to chuckle at my jokes? You're not going to know whether you feel like it's legitimate laughter. when you do it. That could be challenging.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's interesting, though. That's kind of crazy. I never think, again, I don't know much about comedy. It's just kind of like when Maria got into professional wrestling, and I didn't know a lot about that. You know, you just start to learn all these things, like from the industry perspective, like that are, I mean, you just wouldn't have known or wouldn't have ever thought about.
Right.
Yeah. So
there you go. So I got to make a decision before Tuesday
well, it sounds
night.
like if you don't go read your notes from your phone, you might be a
be
step
okay.
up on like a lot of the people. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we going to have a poll question?
Yeah, I don't want to say what it is because we may not know it yet.
Oh.
The poll question is TBD.
Yeah, it's really good. It's got a top last week. So.
We got to figure out once this thing's. We've talked way over time. Sam's going to lose his mind. We're at a minute 10.
Oh no, it's going to be
hour
on
10,
the spreadsheet.
Hour 10.
Oh yeah, the graph.
One of our longest ones in a while. So we got to go. I got to go back through and think about what all we talked about and figure out a good poll question.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, that's it for today's show. Anything else you need to add, Beth?
I don't have anything.
Okay. Well, have a fantastic week, and we will see you next time.
Bye.